Ryan Glover here. I want to talk about my experience with Talib Kweli, who cyberbullied me for several years and stalked me. And like it all started one day I was on Twitter. This is when he had a Twitter account, and I basically replied about like an interview that he had done where he made some inaccurate remarks about illegal immigration. And I shared statistics that proved what he was saying was wrong, and that infuriated him. He started basically attacking me, and saying a lot of negative remarks wouldn't leave the argument alone. So we started going back and forth. Eventually, he ended up losing his Twitter, and then this carried over to Instagram, and we were arguing on Instagram for a while, and he made it very personal, where after I was done with the argument and I really didn't care about anything he said, but he would tag any person I posted on Instagram, anyone who I was doing a video with or whatever. I was at the SAG strike at the time. This is about last year, and he would tag those people, a lot of people in the entertainment industry. Let's say I met actors, and tell them that they shouldn't work with me. And obviously a lot of actors would be scared of that negativity, because it's hard to find work as an actor. Black actors, you see what's going Jonathan Majors is going through. He made a little issue of domestic violence where he ran away from a white woman, and he got charged with domestic violence, and he can't work now. He just got replaced in a movie by Robert Downey Jr. So obviously being an actor, your reputation is of the utmost importance. And you just tried to dirty my reputation, link me to a murder based on a blog that I written about this aspiring rapper, from my city. I messed around with his girlfriend and he ended up getting murdered. And I'm from Chicago. So it was a lot of stuff like that. And then he called up to Dash Radio, where it was to a point where it's they didn't want me to be involved in the building. I had a lot of people who asked me about it, who kind of distanced themselves, who I kind of thought were friends, who wouldn't do interviews because of those accusations that Talib Kweli was making. And I saw pretty prominent people chiming in, and it was a very hurtful situation for me. People like Tasha Smith kind of cheering him on, Busta Rhymes, who was a rapper and stuff, and the things that he was saying were completely false and lies. And he involved Chuck Creekmore, to the point where Chuck Creekmore was on All Hip Hop, and he was disparaging my channel, based on an interview I did with Sean Brown, who's the rapping dude who I interviewed previously, and trying to change the perception and make it seem I'm someone that I'm not. And what I learned from this situation is just that a lot of people in this industry are fake. And Talib Kweli falls into that category. I think a lot of his success is built on nepotism. It's not anything real about him, because I don't think that's real at all. Why would you want to destroy a black man's career, and you're supposedly about being pro-black, going so far as to call me a white supremacist? Obviously that's a ridiculous assertion, because I am black. Most of the people on my channel I interview are black, and I do a great deal of promoting black excellence. In addition to that, there's the allegations in the industry that, the people do sexual favors at times. And I think probably in his case, that may be true, the kind of stuff that Diddy is being accused of. I think Talib Kweli possibly took part in some of those to advance his career. And maybe that's why he sees me as some sort of threat. But I didn't know anything about that firsthand, but I saw that consequence this video, and then it started all to make sense. I think people who are real act a certain way. You can have a disagreement with someone who's real, but they're not going to put it on the internet. There's people and stuff that I have disagreements with I haven't talked about. But in the instance with Talib Kweli, I feel it's important to address it, because he put out so much false narratives about me. And the fact that he was doing this to multiple people. It's not just me. And I did bond. I did make some friends from it, the Hood Smoker podcast, Johnny Donacio, Chester Maffei, a bunch of other people, like, who I was able to interview just because of the fact, like, that we bonded over the fact of being, like, trolled by Talib Kweli, who, like, at one time did respect him as an artist. But, like, at that particular time, his social media engagement was, like, very irresponsible. I think, like, I affected it, put my path, like, my life path on a different journey, where, like, it was almost like trying to be kicked out of hip hop, and it was disappointing to see people and stuff, everything who I'd known, who I actually worked with, taking his side. Like, I interviewed, I'd gone on my way, like, to interview and, like, blog, like, write blogs for certain people, and, like, seeing them, like, support Talib Kweli without even hearing my side of the story, just based on the fact, like, that he's considered a hip hop legend. But then I think you have to look into, like, why, like, sometimes people, like, have these statuses in the music industry that is not always, like, based on music. I feel like, I've contributed a lot to hip hop. Like, I may not be, like, a legend, and I think, like, that term is used loosely. I see a lot of people referring to themselves as legend, and that's cool, like, but, like, what I saw with Talib Kweli was the fact that, like, he had an opportunity, like, obviously being a bigger figure, he could have engaged with me respectfully. He didn't have to make up lies or disrespect me. But, like, at the end of the day, I always feel that the truth will be shown. Like, I have songs, like, with Benzino, Different Day. I just shot a video for that. I have a song with Sky Zoo, who has songs, like, with Talib Kweli. And, like, I just would like to point out, like, I think, like, that comes from jealousy, because, like, I'm real. As something like, Talib Kweli, I don't know if he ever was or he ever has been. Like, he portrays, like, this element that he's of the streets, but I don't think he really is. I think, like, to be honest, like, that guy, like, went to a private school, and, like, nothing wrong with going to private school. I went to a private school in Chicago, which is the difference. Like, in Chicago, like, people and stuff private, you go to a private school, like, people still gangbang. Like, so it's a total difference. I think that there's a lot of, like, artists, like, in the industry who, like, in order to maintain their position, they will do anything to step on other artists who are coming up, because they feel like, that, like, your success means that their success will be diminished. I don't necessarily see it like that. I feel like, everybody can be successful. Everybody can be successful in their own right. And what I seen from Talib Kweli was that he's just, like, a cyberbully. He has a very fragile ego. He's not willing to engage in, like, real intellectual discussions. And I think that puts, like, a lot of, like, suspect into, like, the people like Ari Melber, who have him on platforms, DJ Vlad, like, who, like, he's friends with. And, like, what I would like to say about DJ Vlad, like, who has an issue with me because, like, in the past, I wrote a blog, like, where Murs basically called DJ Vlad out for, like, building his platform on taking advantage of people with drug addictions. He was talking specifically about Trey D and Sugar Free. And I understand that argument. And, like, for whatever reason, like, these people have, like, tried to impede my career. But, like, I've continued to, like, persevere through it. And, like, I may not be doing any interviews, like, in the future, but, like, I will continue to try to speak my truth and, just, like, tell the truth. I think that's important. I think, like, people get so addicted to lies where, like, no one wants to talk about, like, what is actually the truth. And, like, it's like they've picked these people who, like, don't really live up to the image that they portray, like, of representing hip hop. I mean, hip hop obviously, like, is a genre where, like, it gets a bad rap, like, for promoting violence and promoting sexuality. And I think that's the corporateness of it. And, like, a lot of those guys, like, are corporate. Talib Kweli, he just wants to align himself with corporate brands. And, I mean, you can still be a fan of his music and stuff, but, like, after what he did to me and try to take food out of, like, my children's mouth, I just don't see how anybody could, like, be a fan of him, and, like, would say, like, that he's pro-black, because he spent several years trying to misalign and denigrate my character, but I'm still here. And, yeah, so I just wanted to do that video. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share. Follow me on Instagram, Ryan Glover 187.